15 years ago that well-informed people said that London would never survive life outside the Eurozone. As it is, London remains the greatest financial capital on earth, with 40% of all the trade in the single currency, with about 640,000 jobs in this country dependent on financial services.
London's mayor speaking at Thomson Reuters earlier this morning. The man on the stage with him was Hugo Dixon, editor of Reuters Breakingviews, and joins me in the studio now. Hugo, I think the news, if I'm right in saying, to come out of that newsmaker event was that Boris Johnson will campaign for Britain to stay in the single market. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. And given that he has been seen to be one of the most prominent Eurosceptics in the country, this is actually quite big news. Now, of course, he dressed it up in the context of we should have a negotiation with the rest of the European Union about having a different relationship between us and them. But in the context of that, he said, and then we should have a referendum in the UK about that, and he said that he would campaign in favour of staying in. And if there is one person in the British political life who can sell the European Union to a sceptical British people, it's Boris Johnson.
And let's face it, we had a mini referendum at the end of that newsmaker session, and it looked as though, I would say, 90% of the room were in favour of his view. Breakingviews put out a piece yesterday, I want to try and link this in, about the city of London serving the Eurozone. Of course, there is this link there. One of the questions Boris was asked this morning was about London playing a part in setting the rules. In the financial services sector. Now, of course, the danger is we might lose that rule-making.
Well, his argument is that if we leave the European Union, we'll certainly lose that rule-making ability. Of course, the counter-argument is that if we're inside, we may also lose that rule-making ability because we're just one voice among many. And as that inner core comes together, the Eurozone, they will vote increasingly as a bloc, and we will always be outvoted. So there is a risk. There's a huge risk. And I would say there are two risks in the sort of, the Boris position. I happen to be strongly in the view that we need to try to make the best that we can of the European Union. But there are two risks. One is that the core gets closer and closer together, and that we have very little influence over the rules. The other weakness in his position, in Boris's position, is that he sets out, we're going to renegotiate our relationship with the European Union, we're going to scrap the social chapter, we're going to scrap the fisheries policy. If we go in and we say to them, scrap all of these things, they'd probably say,
absolutely not.
No. And then what do you do?
Do you think, and I know he's a friend of yours, but do you think he gets the intricacies of this, the financial side of this argument well enough?
Well, clearly, as you could see with the Q&A, he wasn't on top of all of the details of the banking union, the financial regulation. When one person asked him about what about double majority voting within the European Banking Authority, he wasn't on top of what that was. But he said, do you mean better safeguards for Britain? Of course I'm in favour of better safeguards for Britain. There are a whole host of technicalities, and actually the number of people who are on top of everything, I think you probably count on the fingers of one hand. I think that as a politician, he is pretty much on top of, he understands the big picture. And he has, if you remember, he did spend several years as a reporter in the 1980s in Brussels, so he does understand that side of things. But I think that what's interesting is the way he's sort of it's the first time that I'm aware that he's actually said clearly that that he would campaign in favour of staying in. And I think, I'm not entirely sure what's pushed him in that direction, but I think being mayor of London has probably been a very influential factor, because as mayor of London, the most important industry is finance, and people inside the financial world, they know that it would be a disaster for London if we were cut off from that European single market in finance.
All right, Hugo, I am going to stop it there. Many thanks for that. Many thanks for the newsmaker as well this morning. Hugo Dixon, editor of Reuters Breaking Views. For more agenda-setting financial insight, watch our US show. That comes on every day, 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 GMT. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.